I still remember the first time Jimmy Page reached out to me. I was a young singer from the Midlands, just finding my voice and trying to make sense of the world through song. The idea that this legendary guitarist, known for his sessions and his unique sound, wanted me to join a new band was almost unbelievable. Yet when we finally met, there was an electricity in the air, a certain magic that you can't really put into words. We weren't just four musicians playing notes. We were weaving something bigger, an explosion of sound, energy, and emotion that would soon be called Led Zeppelin. The days that followed were a whirlwind of creativity, late-night rehearsals, and a hunger to push boundaries that was almost reckless in its intensity. The music we made was raw and powerful, rooted in blues and folk, but charged with the rebellious spirit of youth. I was young then, full of fire and ambition, believing we could conquer the world one riff at a time. Those early years were intoxicating. We traveled from city to city, playing venues where the crowd's roar was almost as loud as the music itself. John Bonham's drumming thundered like a heartbeat beneath everything, while John Paul Jones's bass and keys gave us a depth that made the songs breathe. Jimmy's guitar was both fierce and delicate, capable of building walls of sound or whispering secrets in a single note. And me, I was the voice that carried these stories, sometimes wild, sometimes tender, always searching for meaning. It was a time when everything felt possible, when the world seemed both vast and ours for the taking. But with such intensity comes a price. Fame hit us fast and hard, pulling us into a life of excess and exhaustion. The endless tours, the crowds, the wild parties, they all took their toll. It's strange being adored by millions and yet feeling so isolated. The pressures to keep delivering, to stay relevant, to live up to the legend weighed heavily on me. I began to realize that the very fire that fueled us could also burn us out. I don't regret those days, but I do remember how tiring it was to live inside that storm. Then came the hardest moment of all, the death of John Bonham. Losing Bonzo was like losing the very heart of Led Zeppelin. He wasn't just a drummer, he was the pulse that gave life to our music. When he died, it felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet, like a part of me had been torn away. It was a shock that left me numb and broken. We all knew, without saying it, that the band could not go on without him. It wasn't just about replacing a member, it was about honoring what we had created together. To try to continue would have felt wrong, almost sacrilegious. So Led Zeppelin ended. That ending was painful but necessary, a way to preserve the integrity of what we had made. Since then, many have asked me why I don't talk more about Led Zeppelin, why I avoid reunion shows, why I don't bask in nostalgia. The truth is that revisiting the past constantly can be a kind of prison. Those songs belong to a different version of me, a younger man filled with fire and longing, someone who is still figuring out who he was. I respect that man, but I am not him anymore. The voice that once sang those powerful anthems has changed, softened, deepened. When I hear those songs now, they feel like echoes of a past life, beautiful but distant. I can't inhabit that place any longer, and I don't want to pretend I can. As I sit here reflecting on those years with Led Zeppelin, I'm struck by how much time has passed and how much has changed. Not just in the world, but inside me. The music we made was a product of a particular moment, a moment that is gone now, impossible to recapture. It's like trying to hold water in your hands. No matter how tightly you grip, it slips through your fingers. I remember the excitement we felt, the rush of creating something new and powerful, but also the exhaustion that followed. The relentless touring schedules, the pressure to keep pushing boundaries, the expectations from fans and the music industry, it all built up like a storm around us. Bonzo's death was the eye of that storm, the moment when everything seemed to fall apart. Losing him was a wound that never fully healed. He was more than a drummer. He was a force of nature, a presence that held us together. When he passed, it felt like losing the heart that pumped life into the band. And without that heart, Led Zeppelin could not continue. I've often thought about what it would have been like if he'd lived. Maybe we could have gone on, changed with the times, found new ways to create. But there's also something sacred about how it ended, about letting the band rest rather than forcing it to carry on without the soul that made it whole. There's a heaviness to being part of something as legendary as Led Zeppelin. On the one hand, it's an incredible gift. The music has touched millions, inspired generations, and changed the course of rock and roll. But on the other hand, it's a weight that sits on your shoulders every day. People want you to be the same as you were, to keep performing the songs exactly as they remember. They want to hold on to that golden moment, but for me, those moments are memories, not my reality. I've grown, changed, learned to see the world through different eyes. The music that once poured out effortlessly now demands new meaning, new contexts. Sometimes I think about the voice I had in those days, raw, powerful, desperate to be heard. That voice was tied to a specific time and place, and it reflected the man I was then. Now, my voice is different, softer in some ways, deeper in others, shaped by years of experience, pain, and joy. When I sing the old songs now, I sometimes feel like I'm inhabiting a different skin. The words still mean something, but they resonate differently. It's like reading an old letter from a friend you once knew, but no longer recognize completely. I've found freedom in creating new music, in stepping outside the shadow of Led Zeppelin. Working with Alison Krauss on Raising Sand opened up a whole new world for me, blending folk, country, and blues in ways I hadn't explored before. It was a breath of fresh air, a reminder that music is always evolving, and that I'm still learning how to express myself. Saving Grace, with its acoustic textures and world influences, gave me another outlet to experiment and grow. These projects have kept me alive creatively, and they've allowed me to connect with audiences in a more intimate way. Fame, too, taught me a lot. It's a curious thing, being adored by millions, and yet feeling alone. The spotlight can be blinding, and the noise overwhelming. There were times when I wanted nothing more than to disappear into the background, to find peace away from the chaos. Personal tragedies, especially the loss of my son, brought that desire into sharp focus. Life suddenly seemed fragile, and all the noise of fame paled in comparison to the need for quiet, for healing, for presence. In those moments, talking endlessly about Led Zeppelin felt like a distraction from what truly mattered. That's part of why I choose silence. Not because I have nothing to say, but because some things are better kept sacred. I want the music to speak for itself. I want people to feel the power and mystery of Led Zeppelin through the songs, without me having to explain every detail, every story.